And we're back. So what we're gonna do, what we just did was get the measurement of the cuff. See that the cuff, right? And we did the slit. By the way, your finished pattern would be all the outline of the sleeve with all its notches. Make sure that you do 90 degrees from the seam into the seam allowance. And you're gonna have this line with this big notch up to here, because when you cut your fabric, you're gonna slash it up to there. You're not gonna know where to put your placket if you don't cut it on the fabric, okay? So I'm on video, so nobody's gonna tell me I didn't tell you. When you cut your sleeve, you need to cut through here, and don't work on your shirt and then realize, oh my God, I didn't cut it. It's gonna be hard to put the pattern on top of it, okay? So I'm gonna do this so you guys remember. I'm gonna give you little scissors here. So you remember that you're gonna have,
Oh, they look like
doing
X's.
it backward. Huh?
Nothing.
They don't look like scissors?
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna cut through that line up to here. Okay? Cut. Not confusions here. Are we all okay so far? All right. So what we did right now is we created those pleats. See, actually, I did the direction of the pleats backwards. You should be towards the placket. Okay? We can see it here. Maybe let's use the other sleeve so we can have the same arm and you guys can see it. So, see, this is where we are. And then here are your pleats coming this way. So we did that. We have the measurement. Now we need to create this little placket. Let me see how much this one measures, because it actually, to me, 2.5 inches is too small. This one measures 5. What do you guys think if we should do 4? You want to do 5?
No, do 4.
Okay, how many want to do 4?
No more buttons. 4.
How many wants to do 5? Okay,
4 wins.
we do 4.5 because democratic.
No, you're the middle. You're not scared of democracy. 4 is big enough.
Okay, I'm giving you too many options. This is sounding like trouble. Okay, so 4.5, 4.5. Okay, so we're gonna do, this one is going to go home because we're not gonna do this little one. That is like a baby opening. Who has such a tiny baby opening? If you want to roll up your sleeves, you won't be able to do it. Okay, so this warrants another pair of scissors. Okay. We're okay?
Yes.
Yep. We got our pleats, we got a rounded shape of the bottom, we got our slit. Now we're going to do 2 pattern pieces. So these 2 pattern pieces that we're going to do is called a binding. I don't know if you can see it. See that we have a little binding right here on the edge? Look, binding is like what you have on the edge of your neckline, Alessandra. Right? We're gonna finish that edge with this binding. This binding is gonna measure 1/2 inch. Okay? I'm not gonna make you do one too tiny because it's gonna be hard for you guys to, so actually it's 3/8. Let's do 3/8. Your fabric is not gonna be thick, so let's do 3/8. Okay? So this is the same piece of fabric that is being folded in 4. You guys remember when we did the Hong Kong finish on the stitching? We got the bias and we folded in 4 and we placed it in there. It's exactly the same thing. Okay? So if this measures 4.5, and we're doing 3/8 times 4, I'm not gonna make you suffer, is 1.5 inches by 4.5. So let's make your binding. Your binding is gonna be on the length of the opening because you want the grain line so this doesn't get stretched out. I know when we did the Hong Kong finish, we did on the bias, and that is because you're finishing a seam that sometimes it would be on a curve, and that's why you do it on the bias, okay? But this is not gonna be that. You know where you see a lot of the Hong Kong finish, for example, on the rise, on the crotch of dressy pants. So it is curved, so that's why it has to be on the bias. But this one, you don't want it to stretch out, okay? And I'm emphasizing this concept of stretching out because I want you guys to be aware of that when you guys decide. So I'm gonna make a line and I'm gonna measure 1.5. We did their binding at 4.5. And we're going to add 1/2 inch on only one side. This is the top of the placket. This is where it connects to the cuff. That's why it has 1/2 inch seam allowance. You do not add more seam allowance because it's the same piece of fabric that is already folded on itself. Okay? The only thing we need to do here is we need to add a grain line. And we're gonna call it shirt, sleeve, cuff, binding, size 8, and your name. Okay? So we got one done. Let's do now the actual placket. So we said that our placket is gonna measure 1 inch wide. So I'm gonna draw it in here, and on your work in progress, you're gonna have it drawn in here. But when you do your clean copy, you're not gonna copy that, okay? So I'm gonna measure 1 inch wider. You see where you have the cut for the slit on the placket? I'm gonna square it off right there. And I'm gonna make a little square because it measures 1 inch here. So I'm gonna measure 1 inch up on top. Everybody okay? This measures 1 inch, so it measures 1 inch up. So that way this is a little square. So what we are actually doing, I call it a little house. See that it has that little house right here? Okay? So now we need to make the roof of the house. So to the roof of the house, this measures 1 inch, right? So I'm gonna measure half of that, 1/2 inch, right on the center, right? 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna go up 1/2 inch. And from there, I'm gonna connect it down, and I'm gonna connect it down. Pretty? Everybody okay with this? Yes? Am I boring you? No? Okay. That's nice. Okay. So, let's extract from here the actual placket. So remember, we're doing 4 pattern pieces now. We have the sleeve, we have the cuff, we have the binding, and now we have the placket. So how many pieces did we say yesterday? Were 10?
You said 10.
Okay, so here we have 4. Yes? Okay. So I'm gonna let you guys work on this sleeve and have all these 4 pieces, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna do the yoke. We're gonna do the plackets, round at the bottom of the shirt, and then last, we're gonna do the collar, okay? So here how it goes. To make this placket, I need it to be folded on itself. So I'm gonna cut a piece of paper. I'm gonna draw a line, which it could be my grain line later on. I'm going to place it on this cut right here. And I want to make sure that this doesn't hit. So I'm going to put a couple of pins. You guys are going to appreciate how much work there is on a shirt that we underestimate.
I've never underestimated.
Huh? You didn't underestimate it? Okay.
It's hard to just like repair them.
Huh?
It's hard to like even just fix them.
Oh yeah. All right. So this is the longest part. I'm going to square it here at the bottom. Okay. And I'm going to copy that little torpedo house that we just created. I'm going to place a notch where the slit opens. Okay? Everybody okay? Now I'm going to fold it in half. And I'm going to copy the house on the other side. So it's a duplex. Okay? See? We have a duplex.
It's beautiful.
All right. So let's talk about seam allowances. We're going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance to the bottom that connects to the cuff. We're going to add 1/2 inch seam allowance up to the notch. And then we're going to add 1/4 inch seam allowance to the roof of the house. So this center line is going to be your grain line, and we're going to call this shirt, sleeve, placket, size 8, and your name. Okay? Any questions? That's it. So we have the cuff, we have the sleeve binding, we have the sleeve, and we have the sleeve placket.
And the buttons? Or no
Huh?
buttons? No buttons or anything?
What do you mean buttons?
On the plaque? like down.
You can add your buttons if you want.
But we don't need
It's more decorative. If the slit is too long, if the placket is too long, then you probably want to put a button in the middle. But if it's short enough, you don't have to. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this.